Welcome back to another episode of The Last of Us Talk Show. In this episode, we are doing our Season 1, Episode 6, Kin spoiler review. And, so again, this is the spoiler review. So if you have not watched this episode yet, please go watch that episode first. And then return here and listen to this episode. But you do not want to be spoiled on this episode. It's a fantastic episode, so you really want to watch it first. Again, this one was directed by Yasmila Zabanik. Again, starring Pedro Pascal, Bella Ramsey, Gabriel Luna returns as Tommy, Tina Wesley comes in as Maria. Graham Greene as Marlon, Elaine Miles as Florence. Got to give those two a shout out for their performance in this episode because they provided much needed comedic relief, as I had mentioned in the instant take. Okay, but let's get into this review because I gotta get recording. I know this is going to be a long episode because I actually recorded this episode once already, and then it turned out I had found that I had accidentally muted my mic, and it had been muted pretty much the entire time I was recording. So, I'm going to try to make this a little bit faster than what I did the first time I attempted it because again, this is the second time, but also because it was super long, like the longest I had ever made an episode for anything I've podcasted about before, whether it's been video games, sports, movies, other TV shows that I've podcasted about. I've never had an episode that long, so I'm going to try to be a little bit more concise with my thoughts here. And hopefully this will actually make it better than what I had originally attempted to record that first time. So let's get into it. We open up the episode. We get a quick little reminder of what happened at the end of the last episode with Henry and Sam, just so that we can be reminded of how horrible that was, I guess. And then we cut to a little title card saying that now we are 3 months later. We open up. It's a shot of a man walking through the snow. He's carrying a bow and arrows. He's got a bunch of rabbits that he has hunted, and he's entering this cabin. And we see an older woman. She's sitting down in a chair across the room from him, and she's just looking at the man. Doesn't say anything, and gives a quick glance over to her left. Kind of signifying to the man that, hey, something is up. And then the man, he can recognize the signal and knows what she means. So he just like slowly puts down his bow and arrow, takes off his jacket, starts taking off his gloves, and then Joel comes out from behind this little pillar and says, "Put down your gun too." And Joel says, "I'm just someone passing through." The man needs to pull out his gun with just his fingers only and then put it out of reach. So the man does this, and then the man just looks over at his wife and says, "Why didn't you shoot him?" And her reply is, "The gun's all the way over there," and points across the room. And she's like, "He didn't hurt me, by the way." And the old man's just like, "Yeah, I got eyes." I love their relationship here again, and just like the tone that they had with each other, the rapport they had with each other, their interaction. Again, the comedic relief they brought to this series after everything that we've been through the first 5 episodes was much needed and much appreciated. Because then the old man's like, "You even made him soup?" And she's just like, "Yeah, it was cold outside." And Joel says, "Hey, I'm looking for my brother," and the man's like, "I haven't seen him." And he's just like, "I didn't even explain to you who he is yet." And the man's just like, "Well, does he look like you?" And Joel's like, "Sorta." And he's like, "Well, then I haven't seen him." And the woman's like, he's got a girl with him too. Uh, and then Ellie yells from upstairs, asking if she can come down. And Joel's like, no, but of course, she's Ellie, so she comes downstairs anyways. And Joel's like, what the heck? And Ellie's like, what? Come on, they're 1,000 years old. And then Joel starts explaining to them that they're lost. And the man says, if you got a map, why are you lost? And Ellie's just like, we must have missed all those huge signs in the forest. And oh no, she says, of course, she says it in the crass way that Ellie would say it, where she's like, we must have missed all those fucking huge signs in the forest. And the old man just like, holy, who's this little psycho? And, him and his wife have a laugh about it. And, but Joel pulls out the map and says, like, I want you to point out to me where we are on the map. And your answer better be the same as your wife's. And, so he looks over at his wife and he's just like, did you tell him the truth? She says, yeah. And he says, are you telling me the truth? And she's like, yeah, don't worry. I'm not, she didn't say that her exact line was, yeah. But, kind of implied like, yeah, don't worry. I'm not lying to you. I'm not going to try to get you killed. So then he points out to where they are on the map. And then Joel puts away his gun and he's, happy with what the answer was. They obviously pointed out the same place, and Joel's like, "Okay, you guys found a good place to hide out here." And guy's just like, "No, wait, I've been out here a long time, longer than you, since before you were born. Um, I wanted to be away from people." And the woman's like, "I didn't." Just another little funny line from between those two. And then, anyways, they're sorry about Joel's brother. But anywhere there used to be people, it's all covered with infected. And Joel and Ellie are familiar with that because they've been looking for Tommy, right? And I can't remember the list of cities and towns they mentioned. The one that jumped out to me was Cody, because the last place that Joel had received a radio message from Tommy was Cody. So Joel Joel and Ellie mentioned that, they saw all these other towns, including Cody, and they're all covered with infected. But the old man and woman have never heard the name Tom before. They had never even heard of the Fireflies. Joel asks for advice on the best way west, and the man says, go east. Never go past this river. That's the important thing, because they don't know who's out past this river, but they know there are people out there. But people who go out there, they don't see them come back. They either don't come back or they end up as dead bodies just left across at this river. Some of these bodies are infected, some of them aren't. So obviously somebody's taking care and killing these people and leaving a warning sign that you better not come out this way. And he says if Tommy's west of that river, he's gone. And then he's just like, you won't scare us. And the woman replies, well, Joel looks scared. And he does. Joel and Ellie now, they go outside. And Ellie's like trying to reassure Joel, like, they don't know anything. But Joel's like, you know what? They've lived here a long time, so they probably know. And he leans up against the fence here. And this is what we now know is him having a little panic attack. I wasn't sure. At first, I was like, is he having a heart attack? And Ellie, in this moment, she's panicking about that too. She's like asking him, like, hey, are you okay? Because if you're dying, if you're dead, then I'm screwed. And Joel just says, nah, it's just the cold air hit me all of a sudden. And we know that not to be true, and we'll get to that when we get to him talking about that. But it's just building and building here. His this tension of him building, because now he's getting worried that he could he could screw things up, that he could lose Ellie, because we had a 3 month time jump, but we can see that clearly on this 3 month journey that Joel and Ellie have, that they've been kind of bonding. We don't need to see them, just walking for 3 months worth of episode to understand that. We could see with the way that they talk with each other now that there's been some bonding happening, and we even saw it in the last couple of episodes as well, that they've slowly been bonding. So we can imagine in the 3 months that they've been, and we know Ellie's definitely been talking. She's talking all the time, so they've been talking and just naturally bonding through that. But anyways, they get moving and start making their way west. They see a river that could potentially be the River of Death. So there's caves over there. They decide to take camp for the night just to be safe because it's getting dark. And again, they're just having conversations like we assume that they've been having these last 3 months. And in this one, Ellie's just like wanting Joel to teach her how to hunt rabbits. And then Joel is like taking a swig of whatever alcohol he's was able to get his hands on from some little flask. And Ellie asks to try some. She tries it, and she's like, "Yeah, that's still gross," implying that she's tried some alcohol before. And then Ellie, she's got some, like imaginative, deeper questions she wants to ask. Ellie says, "If they get to the Fireflies and they take her blood, they put it through their machines, and they make a cure, what are they gonna do next?" And so she says, "What are we gonna do next?" And Joel says, "We?" And Ellie says, "Okay, fine, whatever, be that way. What are you gonna do? Uh, after, if you can do whatever you want." And Joel thinks about it for a second and says, "I guess it was never really an option, but if I could do anything you want, I'll move to a ranch with land and raise sheep because they do what they're told. They're quiet." And Ellie's like, "Okay, yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, yeah." So Joel asks Ellie, "Okay, where are you gonna go?" And she just looks up. She looks up to the moon, and she starts explaining. Oh yeah, she read all these astronaut books in school, and she would dream about being an astronaut because, in the QZ where there's just nothing but an ocean of walls around you, there's nowhere else to look but up. So she would read all those astronaut books and admired them all. And then she says to Joel and ponders if it's gonna work, and reveals that she tried to save Sam. She took her blood, rubbed it on his wound, and hoped that it would heal him. And Joel here, again, showing that they have bonded, because instead of just being a grump, he actually gives her some words of comfort here, where he's like, I reckon it's more complicated than that. And he trusts that if Marlene says that the Fireflies can make a vaccine, then they can. He doesn't think Marlene is a fool, or that she would say that the Fireflies could do that if they couldn't. Then they got to get to bed, so Ellie was trying to figure out who's going to take a watch, and Joel says, "I'm going to stay up all night. I'm going to take both watches." And of course, just like we see with anybody in this show, when they say they're going to stay awake, they don't. So we see Joel has fallen asleep, and Ellie is awake, and she has taken watch. She's got the rifle. She's awake. She's standing up, keeping an eye on things. And he wakes up and tells her in the future to wake him up because she can't do stuff like this. And she's like, "I can, and I just did." And he's like, "Yeah, but I'm responsible for you, so you gotta wake me up." And she's just like, "Hey, I did this just the way you taught me. I did everything like you said." So he kind of gives her a nod of approval, but says, "Just wake me up next time." Um, and then they go down by the river. Once again, that they camped out next to, and Joel shoots off his rifle just to see, I guess, if he can draw out any infected that might be hanging out around there. Again, they're being told that there's a river of death, so that I guess they got to be cautious, right? And then nothing happens, nobody comes out, so they cross this bridge to the other side. Um, Again, just like we get more interactions of what I imagine the last 3 months have been like, showing that they've been bonding and just spending time together. Ellie's trying to learn to whistle. Uh, Ellie's saying that she wants Joel to teach her how to hunt, and Joel's, it's okay. Yeah, you could probably do the hunting part, but I don't know about the dressing. And the part where you have to take out the guts, and then Ellie's like, well, why do you call it dressing then? Why don't they call it undressing if you're removing parts? And um, yeah, they're just having these kind of conversations. In fact, the next part, they come across this dam, and Ellie, when they walk into view of it, Ellie just says, "Damn," and Joel, again, he gets this joke. He doesn't just think like, "Oh, she's saying what it is in front of us." He gets that it's a pun, and Joel's like, "Oh, you're no Will Livingston," but nobody is. Uh, she starts asking, this used to make electricity, and she's about to ask Joel how it worked. um but again, Joel here, being the father figure, and knowing this question was coming, he just says, I don't know. He just says, yeah, this used to make electricity, don't ask me how, I don't know. And she's just like, you could have told me anything, I would have believed you. And then Ellie's like gets a little bit worried because they come across another little river, and she's like, "What if this is the river of death?" And of course, when she says that, and they pull out the map, a dozen people ride up on horseback and surround them, and um, yeah, it's not looking good. It's looking like they could be headed for their death. And Joel says to these people, "Hey, we're not looking for trouble." They tell him to drop his gun. They tell Ellie to take 5 steps back from him, and they want to know if they've been near any infected. And Joel says, "No, we're not infected." They bring out this rabid dog, and they're like, "Hey, if this dog smells, uh, this dog can smell if you are infected. If you are, it's going to tear you apart." Dog goes over, smells Joel, and nothing. Just like we expected. We're worried about Ellie, though. We know that she's been bit multiple times. We've seen that a scanner will show up like she is infected. So this dog goes over to smell Ellie. Joel here, frozen, having another little mini panic attack while this is going on, until he hears the dog is being sweet to Ellie. Ellie pets it. The dog's licking her. Boom. Nothing. Thank goodness. Big sigh of relief. Joel says he's just looking for his brother, and a woman comes forward and says, "What's your name?" And then we cut. This whole group of riders is now riding with Ellie and Joel, um, back to this huge gated community. Got this big wooden gate that they open for them, and behind them, behind this wall is essentially a small town, which we know now is Jackson. Uh, they're riding through this little town, and then Joel sees Tommy, and Tommy's just like putting up decorations around the town, because we see this town's like getting ready for, and decorating for Christmas. Um, Joel yells out to Tommy, "Tommy!" Tommy turns around, sees Joel. They run to each other, they hug and embrace, and Joel says that he came out here to save him, and obviously it's looking like Tommy didn't need saving after all. So we cut to uh, uh, Joel Ellie, Tommy, and we're about to find out Maria. They're sitting in this cafeteria. Joel and Ellie are just like scarfing down food. Joel is being uh, very polite and um, saying that this is a great meal. They haven't had a proper meal in months. Ellie's like, I've never had a proper meal, and again, she's cursing here. I don't remember her exact lines, but she's um, cursing up a storm, and Joel's embarrassed by her manners and like, okay, Ellie, let's mind our manners. And then we see a girl standing behind this post staring at Ellie, and Ellie yells at her, like, what are you staring at? And then the girl kind of like walks away looking kind of scared. And Maria says, uh, hey, the, these kids, they're curious. Because the kids around here, they don't look like you, they don't talk like you. And Ellie's like, well, yeah, well, maybe I'm going to teach them. And in fact, I want my gun back too. And Maria says, hey, the kids around here aren't armed either. Uh, Ellie's just like, hey, your men were going to kill me. And you know what? You aren't also great here because there's people around here that are scared of you guys because you leave dead bodies around. And Tommy explains, hey, we got to be careful about who we let in here, and it's mostly just bark. We're not, like going around killing people. We're just trying to scare the people off who might try them. So, Ellie's like, what about all those dead bodies then? And Maria's like, well, those are the people who tried us. Tommy says a bad reputation doesn't mean you're bad. But we get a look from Maria here. She's looking at Joel and says, "Not always, at least." So she must know the history between Joel and Tommy, and has heard some things about Joel. So we see a look here, and in fact, now that I'm talking about a look, I got to mention a look that Ellie had when Joel and Tommy first saw each other and embraced. You saw a look of the look that Ellie had on her face was one of worry, right? We know one of Ellie's biggest worries is ending up alone, and she saw. I like I said, they've been together for this was a 3 month cut now, so we know they've been together for about 4 months, and Ellie's worried about ending up alone, and they've had some mean words hurled towards each other as well, and at one point, um, Joel telling Ellie that she's just cargo, right? And Ellie maybe feeling like maybe she was starting to become like family and feeling like she was getting close to Joel. She sees that embrace that Joel and Tommy had together and goes like, okay, well, I haven't gotten that, so maybe I am just cargo. She kind of had that look on her face like, oh, um, I could be dished because I maybe I'm not that important as what they have here, obviously. Um, so back to where we were in this scene. Joel tells Maria, "Hey, I'd like a moment with just family," and then Tommy reveals that he and Maria are married. Ellie says congrats here, and Joel doesn't say anything. He's just kind of got like a shocked look on his face, and Ellie's like, "Hey, say congrats." Um, he does. He says congrats. That's all he says. One word, congrats. But he says it with that classic asshole Joel voice. um, and then Tom is like, okay, let me give you guys a tour of our town. And they go on a tour. On this tour, Tommy says they are so far out, they don't have to worry about infected because they got like a little tower set up that they can snipe them from. And Tommy's got this new rifle and scope that he can pick them off from half a mile away. Joel wants to know how they're able to keep this place so quiet. Maria says, being in the middle of nowhere helps, not advertising to anyone what they have, and also staying off the radio. Joel and Tommy share a look at this. We know that's how this whole journey started for Joel originally. He was looking for a car battery so that he could get a battery into a car and drive out this way and look for Tommy because he hadn't heard from Tommy on the radio in, I believe, in like it was at least 3 weeks, I believe it was, that Joel had not heard from Tommy when we started out this show. Um, they continue on their tour, and they explain that they get power from the dam, so they have power, electricity, plumbing, basically most of the needs that you need. Or, yeah, most of the needs that you have are met here. Maria says that no one person is in charge. She does serve on a council that was democratically elected, and Tommy's like bragging about how great this town is and how they share everything. It's a shared community. They all rely on each other. And Joel's like, "Yeah, so communism?" And Tommy's like, "No, it's not like that." But Maria's like, "Oh, that's literally what this is. Uh, we live in a commune, and it's communism." Which, Tommy and Joel share a great little look at each other with this one too, because Tommy was in the American military, so we assume that and they're both Texas boys as well, and military. So we're assuming that he's never been too fond of, uh, you know, even the word communism, or a suggestion that anything that would suggest that he was a communist, right? And here he is living in a, a commune, and being quite proud of it as well. But they, um, as they're finishing up their tour here, Maria says that they're going to put Joel and Ellie up in this house across the street from, uh, you know, uh, Tommy and her, and she tells Ellie that she's going to take her, and Joel and Tommy can have some time to catch up. And uh, Joel tells Ellie, "It's okay, you're going to be safe." And then Joel and Tommy go to a bar. They're sharing some drinks. Uh, Tommy's like, "Hey, thanks for still caring about me." And he asks how Tess is doing, and Joel is not. Again, he's got walls up. Even with his own brother here, he doesn't want to talk emotions and hard things, so he just says, "Yeah, well, she's fine." And then Tommy wants to know about the kid that Joel has with him. She's just like, and he says, "Well, she's just some kid of some Firefly higher up muckety muck person, and I'm out this way, helping her look for her family." And Tommy's like, "So you're just doing that out of the goodness of your heart?" And Joel admits, "Okay, yeah, there's a payment." Tommy says, "Okay, well, the Fireflies have a base at University of Eastern Colorado, a fake college, by the way, which is a week's ride south." He says it's not exactly easy because there's infected and raiders between here and there, and um, but Joel says, "Hey, it would be easy with the two of them because we made it across the country together, so we can handle it." And Tommy's like, "Oh yeah, but I can't go." And Joel's like, "Okay, well, is it because of your wife? And she wouldn't let you go, and she's the one keeping you off the radio." Uh, and Tommy says, "Hey, you know what? I left the Fireflies, um, and then Maria and these people took me in. They saved me, and all I have to do is follow the rules here." He says they have to be careful because the wrong people might show up. And Joel wants to know, okay, well, am I wrong people then? Joel says the things Tommy is judging him for, um, he did to keep them alive. And Tommy understands. He says we did those things. It wasn't just you, Joel. We did them together. And there were other ways to survive. We just weren't good at them. Um, and then Joel starts to go in on what he's been through to get here and to get to Tommy. And Tommy interrupts and says, well, I'm going to be a father. Maria's a few months pregnant, and I got to be more careful. I can't just be going on these quests and these treks across the country, or just even a week's ride where there's potential danger, because I have a family that I have to be thinking about now. And again, Joel didn't congratulate him on the marriage earlier, and he doesn't think to congratulate his brother on the on his newfound fatherhood here. But Tommy, he's proud. He's excited. He's like, I always wanted to be a father. I always thought I would be a good father. And Joel just says, in that classic, again, asshole Joel voice, says, I guess we'll find out. And now this has made Tommy upset. He's like, that's all you have to say to me? And then something that only family or really close loved ones can do to each other. Say something that they know that they don't, maybe they don't even mean, but they say it because they know it's going to hurt. And, they do it in a moment where they're hurt, and then they say it to hurt someone else. Because Tommy says to Joel here that just because life stopped for you doesn't mean it has to stop for me. And he knows what he's talking about, and Joel knows what he's talking about, and how hard it is for Joel, and how hard it's been for him for the last 20 years since losing Sarah. So Joel just says, fine, I'll grab some supplies in the morning and leave. And then Joel leaves the bar. He goes outside, and he sees this woman who resembles Sarah, and who would potentially resembles what Sarah would potentially look like now, 20 years later. And this woman has a daughter of her own as well. So this would be Joel's granddaughter, and this is the potential life that he could have. And he just sees this, and he has another little panic attack here. Then we cut to Ellie. She's back at the house that her and Joel are going to be staying in. She's coming out of the shower. She finds that Maria left her a Diva cup and a note saying that she has crossed the street. Just a quick note, just again, glad that they're taking the time for the show, just to show that, hey, yeah, this is something that women would have to deal with. Even in the apocalypse, periods don't go away. Menstruation cycles don't go away. This is something you're going to have to deal with. And I feel like, I don't know a lot about these things, but I feel like this is going to be a lot better than like the old tampons that Ellie found in the gas station, right? Potentially, this Diva cup will be a lot more comfortable and hopefully a lot more sanitary than those old tampons she found. I don't know how much better or effective these things are going to be 20 years later, but she seems excited about it. So I think that's actually a really nice gift that Maria is giving to her, especially in this world where these things just aren't readily available, right? And again, in a world where women would still have to deal with this. But moving forward, Ellie is dressed. She goes across the street to Maria and Tommy's house. She calls out to Maria, but she doesn't answer. And so she just starts walking around the house, and she finds this memorial. This memorial is for Kevin and Sarah. Sarah, we know, is Joel's daughter. She was just 14. Kevin, we don't know at this point who he is in the story yet, but just looking at the dates on it, he's just a little over 3 years old, not 4 years old yet, and his was April 3rd, 2000 to September 29th, 2003. So just like about 3.5 years old, and yeah, just horrible. It was horrible to see Sarah. I'm glad we didn't see Kevin. I don't want to get a flashback of what happened to Kevin. It's just a 3 year old, again, just dying a couple of days. We know September 26th, 2003 was outbreak day, so he died just a few days later. We can assume from the from the outbreak. Again, I don't I have kids these ages, almost exactly. So yeah, especially the one that young, I don't want to see. So I hope we never see. It is just sad to even think about, because it's sad. Like, just even the thought crossing my mind that I would lose one of my children. Remember, I have 5 kids, so I got kids all in these age ranges, and yeah, I mean, just the thought passing my mind gives me a panic attack, like Joel is experiencing throughout this episode. Anyways, Maria walks in and gives Ellie this winter jacket, this eggplant colored jacket, and says she's gonna give Ellie a haircut, and um, they're just having, like, uh, salon talk like you would, or whenever you go to the barber, you'd have talk while you're getting your hair cut. And Ellie wants to know what Maria did before, if this is what she did before. And Maria's like, no, she was a district attorney assistant, and she would put bad guys away. And maybe this is why she's got kind of a sour attitude with Joel, because that was her background, and she's heard about things that Tommy and Joel have done together. She's obviously forgiven Tommy. She's married him, having a kid with him, but she's probably made a lot of good excuses, because this was a man that she fell in love with, and you know, having a kid with. And again, she's heard Tommy's side, and she's having a kid with Tommy, and she's heard about the stuff that Tommy and Joel did before, and she's probably worried, like, hey, I'm about to have a child with this guy. I don't want his brother showing up and tearing him away from me and going out and doing these things again. So I understand where she's coming from in this episode, with the attitude that she has about Joel. She says that she noticed that Ellie was looking at the memorial that Tommy made, and Ellie says that she's sorry about her kids. And then Maria's like, oh, it's okay, but just Kevin was her kid, and Sarah was Joel's daughter. Ellie kind of freezes at this, and Maria can tell by her body language that she shouldn't have said anything, because she obviously doesn't know. And she doesn't know what, Maria doesn't know what Ellie is doing with Joel, but there's things about him that she doesn't know. And Ellie's like, oh, what, that he used to kill people? Well, he doesn't do that anymore. And Maria's like, she kind of questions that. And Ellie's like, okay, well, he doesn't kill innocent people. And Ellie's like, well, Tommy did it too. Are you worried about him? And Maria says, Tommy was following Joel the way Ellie is now. And again, so this is just like I said, Maria's gotten this side of the story from Tommy. She's a lot more willing to be forgiving of Tommy. She obviously loves him, married him, having a child with him. From our perspective and Joel's perspective, he doesn't, Joel doesn't feel like Tommy was following him. In fact, Joel feels like he was following Tommy around to keep Tommy safe and protected, because Tommy would join other causes. And so Joel feels like, he was the one that was actually following Tommy around just to keep him alive and safe. But anyways, in response to what Maria says about Tommy, Ellie's like, I'm smarter than Tommy. And Maria says, well, you definitely are smart. And Maria can tell that Ellie isn't telling her everything that there is to know about her. So she says, that's actually good, and that's the point. Because what you need to know is the only people who can betray us are the ones we trust. And you think about that saying, 100% true. This is you know a horrible thing to think about, but yeah, the only people who can betray us are the ones we trust. Maria tells Ellie to grab her coat now because they're going to go to the movies. And we cut to this little theater that the community has set up. Ellie's sitting in this big room full of kids. They're all watching this movie. There's a bunch of adults standing around. And then Ellie sees Tommy walk in, goes to the back room and starts talking to Maria. And after they're done with this talk, they kind of look upset, and Tommy leaves the little theater room that they have set up here. And this whole time, Ellie has eyes on Tommy. And then we see Tommy. He walks into this shop where Joel is. The guys around town told Tommy this is where Joel would be. And we see Joel, he's working on his boots, trying to put these boots that he's been walking in for the last 4 months, put them back together. And Tommy just says, "Hey, I brought you these new boots. Figured you need them." And Tommy here, again, he knows what he said earlier, but even though, yeah, Joel was being an asshole, he knows what he said was crossing a line and took it too far. So he comes here and says, "Hey, I'm sorry about what I said earlier. Deep down, Joel, I know you're happy for me, and I know it's complicated for you." And Joel here, he's just thinking about, because he was hoping that Tommy was going to join him. Now he knows he's not. So Joel wants to know, is this suicide mission? Is it a suicide mission to try to get to this university? And Tommy's just like, "No, you know what? It's nothing you can't handle. You'd be able to do it." And Joel's like, "Okay, well, if it's not too hard, you've had actually people go there, and you've had people like return alive." And Tommy says, "Yeah, everybody that's gone that way has come back alive." And Tommy's like, "What's with all this questioning? Why all this concern?" And then Joel finally comes out with it and tells him Ellie is immune. Tommy here, he looks worried at first, because think about it. We've seen it in the show, and we've had it told to us in the show. One infected can spread it so fast. Tommy has a look on his face like he needs to run out the door and go take care of this, because we saw it in Jakarta, right? Or we heard about it in Jakarta. One factory worker got infected, bit 14 other factory workers. Next thing you know, it's being spread all over Jakarta. We saw it in when they were in Texas. A neighbor gets bit, starts going around the whole neighborhood, and then this whole city's infected. People were eating it. It can spread so fast. So you could see why Tommy looks like really worried at first. But Joel says, it's for real. I saw her get bit myself. It was months ago, not infected, months ago. He's got to emphasize, it's not like he's just like guessing, and it was like recent. It's been months. So Tommy sits down and says, "Tell it to me from the beginning." And as they start talking, we cut real quick to Ellie. We see that she is walking through the town, like kind of looking around, and she's walking the same path that Tommy had just walked. So we're gonna find out that, yeah, she indeed. We'll find out in just a little bit, but yeah, she was indeed following Tommy. And Joel here starts explaining that Marlene from the Fireflies hired him, and then throughout this entire process, Tess and him were transporting this girl, and she got bit. And Tess's dying wish was for Joel to take Ellie to the Fireflies. And it's just been a nightmare since then. Joel is feeling incapable because they got to Kansas City, and uh, Ellie had to save Joel. She had to shoot another kid in the back to save Joel because he was too deaf and too slow and too old to react. So it's his fault that a 14-year-old had to do this. And Joel saw another man kill his own brother to save Ellie because uh, he wasn't able to do it. In that moment, all Joel could do was watch. While this man had to kill his own brother to save Ellie. And then today, uh, you know that that infection smelling dog, he thought it was going to tear Ellie apart, and all he could do was stand there. He couldn't do anything. He's afraid. He says it out loud. He admits it. He's afraid. Uh, Tells Tommy, you know what? You think I can handle these things, but I can't. I'm not who I was before. I'm older. I'm weaker, and I'm afraid. And lately, the fear just comes out of nowhere, and it feels like his heart stops, and he can't sleep. He's not sleeping. He has dreams. Whenever he does sleep, and he doesn't even know what the dreams are or what they're of. He just knows that when he wakes up, he's lost something, and he's failing in his sleep. He's failing her, and it's all he ever does is fail and fail her. And Joel just wants Tommy to take Ellie because he just knows he's gonna fail her too. He's gonna get her killed. Joel is pleading with Tommy, saying that all those things that they did before. If Tommy wants to make up for him, now's his chance. Take Ellie, and his own child that is coming can be brought into a better world. Tommy's younger and stronger, and Joel's like, you said yourself, you could make the trip. It's not bad. You could come back. You'll come back alive. And Joel's like, but you can't tell anyone, not even Maria, because if anyone finds out, they're gonna kill her. And we again, right at the beginning of this scene, we saw the look of apprehension that Tommy had when Joel first said this, because again, how dangerous this infection is and how fast it can spread. Like most people aren't going to hear, oh hey, this person got bit and is infected. They're not going to think, oh well, it's okay, well, let's wait and see. No, it's like, no, kill this person before they kill the rest of this community we have built. And so Joel says to Tommy here, hey, if you do this, this is the last thing I will ever ask of you, Tommy. And then so Tommy agrees. Says, all right, I'll take her out at dawn. And then they leave the shop. Tommy directs Joel on how to get to the house that he's staying at. And then we see Tommy go back to the theater room. We see Ellie isn't there, which we knew she wasn't going to be, because we saw her leave and you know follow behind Tommy before. And but Maria is in this theater. This time Tommy doesn't go up and talk to Maria. He just kind of looks at her, turns around, and starts watching the movie. But they don't talk. But Maria, again, can tell by his body language that something is off. You can tell that she can tell. But then we go back to the house where Joel and Ellie is staying. And Joel goes inside, and he's calling for Ellie. He gets upstairs and opens the door. And Ellie is just sitting there on the bed. She's reading a diary, and she's just like, is this really what it was like before? Is this all girls had to worry about? Making sure that their shirts match their skirts and going to the movies, and boys. It's weird if that's all they had to worry about. And next thing she says is, why are you here? And he just says, to talk. And she's like, no, why are you still here? If you're going to ditch me, ditch me. She overheard the conversation with Tommy, and Ellie's upset. She says, I stuck up for you today, Joel, because I thought. Then she stops herself short. To me, I think she's saying, you know, I I stuck up for you because I care about you, and she thought that he cared about her too. But she stops herself short before continuing, uh, because to me, it's probably a painful thing for her to admit. Especially if she's feeling in this moment that she was wrong. She's feeling, she thought maybe Joel cared about her, but now in this moment she feels like, okay, I guess it's true that or my fear that he doesn't care about me is true. So I can't say it out loud and admit that I wanted you to care about me. But Joel just says, the decision he's making is for her own good, because Tommy knows the area. He's younger, he's stronger, and now she's ready to say it. She's ready to, those emotions are ready to overflow. And she says, "Do you give a shit about me or not?" And he says, "Of course I do." And this is a big moment for both of our characters. Ellie has to come out with it and ask for his care. And he has to come out and say, "Yes, I do care." So they are both saying to each other, "I care about you. I want you to care about me." And they both are giving that to each other, which is huge. It's huge to say and admit for both of these characters. And we're going to find out in just a second, because um Ellie says, "What are you so afraid of?" Then she says, "I'm not her, you know. Maria told me about Sarah." And Joel just says, "Don't." He's pleading, "Don't say another word." Because again, this is obviously the most tragic thing and worst thing that's ever happened in his life. And it's Ellie, though. She can't stop. She's going to keep going. She talks. So she says, "I'm sorry about what happened to your daughter, Joel, but she's lost people too." And he's just like, "You have no idea what loss is." And as a father of five, who the idea of even losing a child puts me in the kind of panic attack that Joel has throughout this episode, I understand where he's coming from. Again, it is diminishing any loss that she has. He doesn't know who she's lost or what those people meant to her. Um, you know, but again, I understand where he's coming from, because I cannot even imagine how painful that would be to lose a child. Um, and again, she doesn't want her pain to be diminished, and she says it here. She says that everyone she has cared for, everyone I have cared for, has either died or left me. Everybody, fucking except for you. And she shoves them. That's how high her emotions have got. She is like physically pushing Joel and telling him, "You know what? I care for you, and everybody else that I've cared for has died or left me, and I thought you cared for me, and now you're about to leave me too." And we know, again, that's her worst fear, is ending up alone. And so she says, "Don't tell me that I would be safer with somebody else, because I would just be more scared." And Joel, he's again, tensions are flying high here. They can only, again, to me, they're only saying these things to each other. Because they know that much about each other, and they both admit here that they care about each other. Again, it's only people that you trust that can betray you this much, right? So uh, Ellie went there with Joel losing a daughter. Now he's gonna go there too. He says, "You know what? You're right. You ain't my daughter, and I sure as hell ain't your dad. Come dawn, we're going our separate ways. And he slams the door and leaves, leaving Ellie there in the room alone. Her worst fear, ending up alone, right? And in that moment, she's got to be feeling more alone than um, she has before, because before she didn't really have anybody, right? And she was thinking maybe now she had somebody, and now she's lost that. We see Joel. He goes to his room, um, and he just thinks about Sarah, the moment they had together, decorating a Christmas tree. I guess the memory passes, turns off the light, and he goes to bed. Early next morning, we see Ellie is packed up. She's all dressed. She's ready to go, and she's waiting in the room. To me, it almost looks as if she's almost hoping that Joel is still coming to get her and going to come through that door, because she hears footsteps coming. When the door opens, though, it's Tommy, and she looks disappointed. Again, I don't know, maybe she was just hoping, you know what, we had that fight, but, maybe he's, still cares about me enough that he's going to come and get me. And she just looks disappointed that it doesn't look like it's the case. And then, yeah, Tommy just says, okay, we're going to the stables. We're going to go get a horse. And then when they get there, who's there but Joel? Joel is there. He's putting his saddle on a horse. And Ellie's just like, come to say goodbye or something. And Joel's like, no, I came to steal one of these horses and go. And Tommy's like, I would have given you one. He's like, yeah, I know you would have. And Joel says, anyways, that was 30 minutes ago. And, I thought you deserve a choice, Ellie. And he starts to explain that he still thinks that Ellie would be better off with Tommy. But before he can even finish his thought about this, Ellie shoves the pack into his body and says, let's go. And he's just like, okay, here we go. Joel asks Tommy to give them directions to the university. He tells him, yeah, just head south. It's a week's ride. Follow I-25. It's going to be right off the freeway. Hard to miss. Joel and Tommy hug here, and Tommy tells Joel and Ellie, there's a place here for both of you when you get done. And Joel's like, I'm counting on it. And obviously, Joel, Tommy, Ellie, they haven't been reading books, watching TV, watching movies, because if you're a character in these type of things, you can't just be making plans for the future. It doesn't end up well for you. We'll get to that in a second. Joel wants to know if he can borrow Tommy's gun. He says yes, and Joel's like, because Maria took mine. And Tommy's like, I already said yes, Joel. Joel, is being the older brother, doesn't want to just ask for things from Tommy. He's going to take the horse. He's going to have an excuse why he needs to take Tommy's gun because somebody else took his. Just funny little, big brother, little brother relationship there. Joel and Ellie now, they get on their horse. They leave Jackson. And we cut to a scene where Joel is now teaching Ellie how to shoot a rifle. Ellie can't hit the target for the life of her. I don't blame her, right? Because she's just starting out. But she's blaming the gun. She's like, "Oh, the gun's off. The scope is off. This is all wrong. It doesn't work right." And Joel gets on it. He's like, "Hey, you know what? You just gotta hold this thing right. You gotta pull the trigger like you love it." Nice, smooth, sweet, and slow. And Ellie's like, okay, you're gonna shoot this thing or get it pregnant. And Joel has a little laugh at that. And then he takes his shot, boom, nails that target dead in the middle. And Ellie's like, you dick. And then we cut to them making the ride and towards the college again, having these conversations that we imagine that they had during their 3 months of getting to Jackson. Just continuing their building their relationship. I don't remember if I mentioned it in this episode, in this recording. Anyways, I remember mentioning it in the first recording that I attempted before I realized I had my mic muted the whole time. But yeah, I saw a lot of chatter online, people saying that they wanted to see more interaction, or they wanted to see more of the journey for Joel and Ellie to feel like they um, had bonded. But to me, I didn't need that. I think we got plenty. They keep showing us the type of conversations that we imagine they had been having during that 3 months. We don't need to see 3 months worth of episodes. We don't need to see like 90 episodes of them just talking and chatting, and building the relationship. We see all these things that they talk about, that obviously have built their relationship, and the way they talk to each other, and how that's changed, and see how that relationship has built over that time. So anyways, Ellie's just like asking, is that the way things were before, the way they were in Jackson? Is that how the country was before the outbreak? And Joe's like, nah, the country was way too big to run things like they were in Jackson. Because people were either greedy and wanted all the money, or the other people didn't want anybody to have any money. And Ellie's like, well, which one were you? And he's like, neither. I just wanted, I just did my job. And he says he was a contractor. He says everybody loved contractors. And then again, continuing the ride, having another conversation. Joel is explaining football to Ellie, and all the rules to football and what it was like. And as they're talking about this, they arrive at the college campus, and they remark, hey, this is pretty amazing that they made it in, they thought it was going to be a week's ride, but they made it in 5 days, and they were 5 easy days at that. But unfortunately, at this point, there's no sign of the fireflies. Joel says, you know what, they're probably just in the middle of the campus because it would be safer there. So Joel tells Ellie, as they're going along here, again, more bonding. And going back to the night at the campfire where Ellie was asking what Joel would do after everything was done, Joel says, if I could be anything, no constraints, I always wanted to be a singer. And Ed's like, oh, sing for me now then. And Joel's like, nah, I'm not going to sing for you. And Ellie's like, okay, well, after I get this done, and if I'm going to save the world, that's the least you can do for me is sing to me when this is all over. Next up, we see them come right up. They see this like signs for different buildings on the campus, and then we see a group of monkeys just like hanging out on the stairs, and they remark, oh, those monkeys must be from the lab. And there's one thing I do want to mention here. I'll talk about it more in the video game comparison. There's a lot of people out there that I know have played the video game. This was another thing that I saw chatter about, because we saw monkeys here. A lot of people were thinking there was something else we were going to see here, and upset that we didn't see it. Cool your jets. You got your timing off. Again, no spoilers. I'm just going to say to the people who know what they are looking for, I'm just going to say you got your timing off. There's still a big chance you're going to see it. I can't imagine that they're going to make this show and not show what you were hoping to see in this scene. But you're just remembering it wrong. It doesn't happen in this scene. It's in a different scene. They are similar, so I get how you got confused, but don't worry. I think we're still gonna get it. I just wanted to say that for anybody who at this point has been worried that they're not going to see something. I think we're gonna see it. and but it's just not. It was not in this moment. Trust me, it's not. Anyways, yeah, they saw those monkeys. They see the sign on where the fireflies, what direction they're in. They see a guard station, but there's no guards. So they get off the horse here and tie it up to a tree. And they're gonna go inside this building, and they got their guns out just in case, right? They get inside, nobody around. They see that there were signs that there were doctors here for sure. They find a packing list that would suggest that these people recently left. And they hear a noise coming from upstairs. And so it's like, okay, well, maybe not everybody or everything has left. They get upstairs, and it was just monkeys messing around in this research room. Luckily for them, in this research room, they find a map that's got a bunch of pins in it that shows us exactly where the fireflies went to. They went to Salt Lake City, so they know that's where their next destination is. Then they hear something outside. This time, it's no doubt what they are because it's human voices. They hear some bandits outside. They know they need to make a run for it. They run out the building, out the back. They get to the horse. Joel's untying the horse, and Ellie yells out, "Joel!" And again, he's old, he's slow, he's deaf. He didn't know there was a man coming behind him, but sure enough, there is. A man swings a bat at him. Joel is able to duck and get out of the way. The bat breaks on the tree that Joel was standing next to, that he was untying the horse from, right? And then the man lunges at Joel, and Joel grabs him, rams his head into the tree, headbutts him, chokes him out, and then breaks his neck. And then I went and watched this scene, this little sequence back like 20 times just to see if I could catch how this next part happened. And then if you go through the scene slowly, you can catch where it happens. And sure enough, Joel turns around to check on Ellie, and she has a look of horror on her face and looks down at Joel's abdomen and sees that the end of the bat has been impaled right in his gut there. And again, if you go back and watch a scene and watch it a bunch of times like I did, you can see where the man swings the bat, it breaks. He's still got the piece of bat in his hand, and you could see he tries to lunge at Joel, and you could see his arm swing and kind of hit him in the stomach. Again, it happened. It's like, it's almost like an NFL replay, right? You have to go back and, like, if you watch it in real time, you can't tell it's a penalty. But if you go back, rewatch it 40 times in slow motion, you could see where it happened. But that's why it's a surprise for Joel and for Ellie, because these things in real time happen quick. You don't even realize it. But yeah, so now he's got this bat sticking out of him. He pulls it out because these other bandits are coming, and Ellie tells him to get on the horse. They get on the horse and take off. Ellie's like taking shots at the guys, the other bandits that were there, coming after them. And they don't have any guns though, so they're able to escape. We cut to them. They're walking along on a on a train track, and Ellie is telling Joel that, okay, we seem to be safe now. I think we're far enough away. Don't seem to be following us. And then Joel collapses, falls off the horse. And again, another great scene from Bella Ramsey here as Ellie. Again, earlier in this episode, with the conversation that Joel had with Tommy, everybody's talking about Pedro Pascal being nominated, right? I mean, for Emmys, right? Throughout this episode, I think Bella Ramsey did a lot in this episode as well. That is going to show that she needs to be nominated for some Emmys too. But anyways, Ellie here, pleading with the Joel that is collapsed here on the ground. his eyes closed. Ellie's pleading with him, "Please open your eyes. I can't do this without you. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where I'm going. What am I gonna do if you're gone?" And she just starts whispering to Joel, "Joel, please, Joel, please." And that is how we end our episode. It was absolutely, again, this episode took me on a full range of emotions, from uh, laughing to crying, just absolute beautiful stuff. But yeah, if you made it all the way to the end here, please let me know, how did this episode make you feel? Were you laughing? Were you crying? Um, how does it make you feel that a lot of the uh, a lot of these conversations that our characters had with each other? I mean, how do you feel coming out of it? Have you had these kind of conversations with loved ones where you've said something horrible to someone that you knew was going to hurt them, even though you didn't mean it? You just, you knew you had something that would hurt them, so you said it, and then you go back and regret it later. We've seen that with multiple characters in the episode here, with Joel and Tommy, and then Joel and Ellie. Yeah, let me know. Um, in the comments on YouTube. Hit me up on the Last of Us Talk Show at gmail.com. Leave me reviews on Apple Podcasts. I got to start checking those out. I didn't realize. So I record on Anchor, and when I first started, I got on Anchor podcasts when Anchor first started, and they used to distribute everything for you automatically. And throughout the years, all the different podcasts I do, they would always send me surveys and ask me questions about what was good about the platform, what was not so good. One of the things that wasn't so great, it was great that they distribute it everywhere for you automatically. It made it super easy, but then you wouldn't have access and control to all the stats and things that you could customize on other platforms, right? So then when I started this podcast, I didn't even know that they had changed it in because I hadn't started a new podcast in quite some time. Like, all of my other podcasts are older, that they still would automatically do that, but now they don't do that. Because there was a lot of people that would give that feedback, me including being one of them, that it'd be great to have access to all those features of the other platforms. They make it easy, and they tell you how to do it, but they don't just automatically distribute it everywhere for you. Now you have to go in and submit it yourself. So I didn't even realize, but the first few episodes weren't all going to Apple Podcasts. They all are there now. And hopefully you're listening to that on Apple Podcasts now, so you can leave reviews. I feel like people must be listening to this podcast and finding the show on podcast platforms, because when I search for the show now, like, it's a lot up higher on the list than it was before, and that tells me that people must be finding it and listening to it. I can see the numbers, so I know they are, but it just tells me that a good amount of people are finding it like I hoped. So hopefully now that it's on Apple Podcasts, even more will find it, and find it faster. But it really helps if you leave a review and a 5-star rating, so I'd appreciate those. Also, boy, oh boy, the YouTube episodes that I upload, or the episodes that I upload to YouTube, you guys are getting a lot of views on there too. Some of the episodes have like 3 times the amount of subscribers I have, because this YouTube channel that that I put these on, it's always kind of just been like a little side project thing where I only have a handful of subscribers, and I haven't ever really posted a lot here. But now I'm getting a ton. I've gained some subscribers, but like I said, there's like some of these that I'm getting like 3-4 times more people than I have subscribed. So if some of you hit that subscribe button, I would love that as well. Okay, that's going to be the episode, though. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Um, and we'll see you for the episode uh, and video game comparison episode soon. I will tell you there's a lot of stuff in this episode that I'm really excited to talk about for a video game comparison, because there's a lot of things that are big moments in this episode that take place in the game. And then they just give us Easter eggs galore for things that are going to come in the future. I'm not going to spoil anything that happens in the future, but I'll just mention things that are, oh, this was an Easter egg that is going to be tied in later. I promise not to spoil anything for people who are just TV watchers, or who are just game one watchers, or I mean game one players. Or if you, I'm not going to spoil anything that is past where the episode has gone. I'll put it that way. Okay, so you're not going to have to worry about spoilers, but there's a lot of things that get tied into later stuff that I'm just excited to mention. Like, wow, I can't believe they're planting the seeds for these things. All right. Anyways, until then, make sure that you endure and survive.